Hey, it's Lee for On Your Marks Wrestling, and I'm here with a NXT Takeover Brooklyn 4 review for August 18th, 2018. This is my first video in a really long time. Life got in the way of stuff. I'm just kind of finally catching up on wrestling. I'm hoping to be caught up on the main shows so that tomorrow's SummerSlam will actually make sense to me. The one wrestling thing I did watch in between my last video and now in terms of big events was TNA's Slammiversary. Not TNA, excuse me, Impact Wrestling. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. That was one of the better pay-per-views I've seen in a really long time. Impact Wrestling has been kind of killing it ever since there was a change in management, so give that a shot. I strongly recommend it. It's completely different from what it used to be. It was great. So NXT TakeOver. The way I did this was a little bit different from usual. I used to write notes like throughout the show, and I really got no enjoyment out of the show as a result of it. So what I did now is I watched a match, and then I briefly wrote down some notes. Then I watched another match, and I briefly wrote down some notes and kind of did that pattern. So I kind of get my overall feel of the match at the end. I gave each match a score, and I'll give a kind of a aggregate score for the whole show at the end. So the first match was Roderick Strong and Kyle O'Reilly, so the Undisputed Era, versus Trent Seven and Tyler Bate, who are Mustache Mountain. Is it Severn or Seven? I said Seven. I wrote great match. Both Mustache Mountain guys had injuries throughout the match. They were dealing with injuries from previous shows and stuff. I wrote that Undisputed Era fought a relatively clean fight. And they actually kicked out of a lot of finishing-looking moves, which seemed like a kind of a babyface thing, so it was a little strange that they went that route, but I was fine with it. After a near fall, Undisputed Era attacked Seven's knee and then managed to hit a kind of high-low move and finish him off that way, and so they retained their title. Then at the end of the match, War Raiders came in and destroyed Undisputed Era. They do a pop-up power slam, and it looks better than their finisher by far. It's amazing. It looks really cool. But then they did their finisher anyway. I really like this match. The only thing that was a little strange was how kind of weirdly booked the bad guys were. They weren't bad guys enough in my books, but in terms of in-match or in-ring stuff, it was almost perfect. I gave this match a 9 out of 10. I wanted to give myself a little room for future matches because NXT takeovers are always very good, so you expect pretty good stuff coming down. EC3 versus Velveteen Dream was the next match. EC3 dominated early. Eventually, though, Velveteen Dream hits a twisting type of DDT on the steel floor outside of the ring, and I wrote that the momentum really flipped at that point. I thought that the announcers did a really good job of explaining that EC3's neck was compromised during that match, and it kind of limited him a little bit. Velveteen Dream eventually hit EC3 with a Dream Valley driver on the apron, which is the hardest part of the ring if you've never heard. And then he hit a top rope elbow to the apron as well. EC3 was cut above the eye. I don't know when that happened. Did not happen from the elbow, I can tell you that. And that was the end of the match, so Velveteen Dream wins, which was kind of nice. I didn't love this match. There was a lot of kind of hokey stuff at the beginning. Sometimes I like that stuff from Velveteen Dream, but I thought this was a little exaggerated. It was some weird stuff where he kind of set himself up for EC3. It just looked wrong. So I gave this match a 6.5 out of 10. It was certainly passable, good match, but not necessarily takeover worthy, I'd say. The next match was Ricochet versus Adam Cole. I wrote another great match. The story here was Adam Cole is wily, has really high ring IQ, and Ricochet, the story for him was obviously he's the most athletic wrestler, but there was also the fact that he has other tools. He's not limited to just using his athleticism. There was a spot in it where Ricochet does a moonsault off the second rope, and Adam Cole does a super kick and lands it perfectly. The timing on that move might have been the best timing I've ever seen on any move. It looked so cool. I loved it. With that being said, though, Ricochet did eventually, and Ricochet did a lot of work in this match, and he eventually hit a 630 and got the win, so he's the new North American champion. The next match was Kairi Sane versus Shana Baszler, a rematch of the first ever final for the Mae Young Classic. They did a good job of kind of establishing the Sane win in the Mae Young Classic and how Baszler's been dominant since then, and Sane's kind of not struggled, but not really accomplished all that much since then. I wrote that this was Baszler's best match yet. I thought it was a really good match. Sane hit her insane elbow at one point, but Baszler kicked out of it. It was the first time anybody's kicked out of that. Then she put on that clutch. They call it something different here, Karakina clutch or something like that. I never know the name of it, so I'm just going to call it the clutch for now. Baszler gets her foot up on a second insane elbow attempt, and Baszler puts on the clutch again, but Sane kind of flips backwards and manages to get a pin out of it, and she wins. It kind of looked like the Bret Hart off the turnbuckle thing. I forget who he pinned with that move, but anyways, you guys can look it up. And so Sane gets the win, and I wrote that this was a completely surprising result. Out of all the matches, this is the one I knew who would win. I was sure it was Baszler, so it was very strange that Sane won, but I liked it. I liked it a lot. I thought Sane did a great job in this match. I thought Baszler might have been even better. I thought this was, like I said at the beginning, I thought this was Baszler's best match ever. I know she lost, but I feel a lot more confident with her as a wrestler in big matches now. Because in previous ones, she was okay, but I just thought this was a proper big-time match. I actually thought this was the best women's match out of probably the last 5 or 6 takeovers. It had been kind of a run of mediocre matches for the women. So this was great. I gave it an 8 out of 10. No complaints. I thought that was really, really good. And then the last match was Johnny Gargano versus Tomaso Ciampa. Now this was supposed to be a 3-way with Aleister Black, but he got injured, I think. They wrote him off as being attacked in a parking lot and stuff like that, but I'm pretty sure he got injured. I wrote that there were some moments of brilliance in this match, but then I wrote that it was marred by an unnecessarily long match and kind of a really stupid ending. So the highlight of the match to me was Tomaso Ciampa at one point hits a knee with a chair through a barricade on Gargano, and then just starts piling stuff on him because this is a last man standing match, and it makes sense. Make it hard for the guy to stand up, so he threw the barricade on top of him, a downed employee on top of him, some chairs, anything he could find he tossed on top of him, and I thought that was logical. Gargano still did manage to get out of it. The low light was Gargano handcuffing Ciampa to a kind of wall thing. I can't even explain what it was. And then running over Gargano and knocking, over Ciampa and knocking himself out, giving Gargano the win. It was just a that's 2 times in a row that Gargano is beaten by a handcuffed Ciampa. And this time, Ciampa didn't even play a role in the loss. Like, he did nothing. He got hit by Gargano, but Gargano's momentum knocked him out. It's such a stupid way to treat the most over guy in your company. And I'm sure they talked about this and they thought of this, but it just didn't play well for me. It really kind of took a good match, a pretty darn good match, and made it less good. And it affected the whole pay-per-view in my view because it's the last match, it's the most important match, so its score kind of affects all my other scores. I still gave it a pretty high mark because I thought the effort was there and there was some really, really good moments. So I gave it a 7.5 out of 10, but that thing could have been easily an 8.5, 9 if that ending was in any way logical or not embarrassing to the babyface guy. So I took a look at the whole kind of card. I did an average, came out to a little bit over 8 out of 10. I think that's pretty accurate. I would give this takeover an 8 out of 10. It's probably one of my least favorite takeovers, but that tells you how great takeovers are, right? If I'm giving it an 8 out of 10, and I don't think it's a great show, I think it's just kind of one of the lower tier takeovers, you know that they're doing something right. The women's match, to me, even though it wasn't my favorite match, might have been the highlight because it was just so, I don't want to say so much better, but I thought it was significantly better than recent women's matches, and I think that's a good step because the women's division was kind of, I don't want to say ransacked, but a lot of people were promoted and people were kind of going, what's left in the women's division? And this kind of shows that you can still have some pretty great matches. In fact, the TV show's been showing off some pretty good matches too, so I have to say it seems like the women's division is rebuilding itself up. It needed a little bit of time to kind of gained its balance, but it's looking good. That Ricochet Adam Cole match, I can watch that over and over again. I loved it. And the opening tag team match really reminded me of some of those Revival DIY matches back in the day, except there was kind of less scheming by the bad guys, which I was kind of that little bit I was missing. So yeah, it was great to watch wrestling again. I had stopped watching wrestling. I really kind of did a marathon of wrestling just to catch myself up and be able to watch this. For those who aren't watching 205 Live, by the way, you're really missing out. That show's the best wrestling show on TV right now. So watch that. I will try to catch myself up. I'm hoping to have a SummerSlam review tomorrow. I will probably not do weekly or daily reviews of TV shows, but I will try to kind of think of something. I might do little summaries of the week that was, something like that, because I did catch myself up pretty well. I do want to get back to watching a little bit more wrestling. The videos were kind of draining. It felt like a second job. Clearly, we got like 5 followers. It's not worth going that route, that hard at it. But I do like recording videos. I can't help but do it. So, yeah, I'll be posting more videos. Hopefully Robert gets to that point too. I know he's been very busy with work and home life and stuff like that. But, yeah, this is feeling good. I don't know if you guys feel good about it. If any of you actually watch this that don't know me, well, even if you do know me, I'd love to see some comments on what you thought of this show. Maybe comparing it to kind of recent takeovers as well. All right. Thanks for watching. Bye.